then it's almost half a day apart. But either way, we could probably schedule a Zoom call any afternoon next week.
Excellent. Yeah, let's do it.
Late afternoon, night,
I can
Monday,
always use
Tuesday.
technical help. All right, so Dooovid is here. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Charles Moscowitz. We're live on YouTube. Thank you very much. Having a couple of technical problems today, but we'll work through it. So, Dooovid, we talk on Jewish issues, on Israel issues every week on Thursday at 1 p.m. my time. The program seems to be getting some legs here. I'm getting a lot of interest on the YouTube channel. So, we're really developing a very interesting dialogue, and we're having some other guests on as well. And we should have like third parties on as we continue. Now, today you wanted to talk a little bit about the installed Biden administration's attitude toward the state of Israel and the question of Israel's nuclear capability. It's been widely reported that, of course, Israel has a nuclear facility at the Dimona plant, which is located in the Negev. There was a whistleblower a number of years ago, that being Mordechai Benunu, who apparently alerted the media to this. We don't know much about that other than that the Israelis apprehended him while he was in Italy, and they took him back, and he was in prison for many years. I think that recently he was released with a gag order. And generally speaking, the Israelis have been secretive about, and for good reason, if they do have it, their nuclear capabilities. Now, you have a theory, Dooovid, that they really don't have nuclear capabilities, and that a lot of this might simply be military posturing to enhance the security. What are your thoughts about that? What do you have on that?
So I already heard like 10 years ago. I remember when I was in New York City, I had a friend who was Pakistani who learned in Qom. He was a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, a Sayyid, and he'd studied in their institute in Qom. And I went to a few diplomatic events with him related to Iranians. And I remember one event where they went over the Iranian nuclear program and the Israeli nuclear program. For what I understand, the Israeli nuclear program is about on par with the Iranian nuclear program. And in terms of enrichment of uranium, it's extremely unlikely that Israel, on her own in Dimona, ever developed nuclear weapons. So if you follow like Ryan Dawson, Patrick Little, they'll tell you that if Israel has nuclear weapons, it's because they stole the enrichment grade uranium from some facility in the U.S. And I haven't looked too much into that, but from my knowledge, that would be more likely than that they enriched uranium in Dimona. That Dimona is a good enough nuclear facility to enrich the nuclear material in order to make weapons grade uranium is extremely unlikely. I've heard reports from physicists around the world that says it's almost no chance that Dimona has, and if you can compare, like, Iran has like tens of nuclear power plants. They got bunkers in, like Dimona is like some rundown town where the Israelites live. Actually, the African Israelites live near there. Mm-hmm. And also, just when I went to University of Michigan, I started taking physics. It became abundantly clear Americans' nuclear missile program, and like your statement, and they should. So you're questioning American policy because America does not keep our nuclear weapons secret. You could probably, even as an American citizen, maybe even get a tour to look at the nuclear weapons. Certainly, you could see pictures of them. You could see the locations where they exist. You could look on the internet and find the contact details of the American people who man our nuclear program. So, saying Israel, I have never met anybody, I've never heard anyone in the news say anything, knowledgeable about the nuclear weapons. In fact, every Israeli that I've ever heard has said they have no idea. They haven't been let in on it.
Well, I would think that they wouldn't know because it's top secret. And if they do know, they're not going to tell you.
Well, that's possible,
but national. I mean, you don't talk about such a thing if you know it. You probably are at a very high level of national security clearance, and you're not going to go out and hang out with you or I and talk about that. But as far as whether Israel might have stolen the nuclear technology, I don't doubt that. I mean, look, the Pakistanis got their nuclear bomb by stealing it apparently from Great Britain and smuggled it out. There was a scientist, this guy Khan, who got that into Pakistan. So yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that. I mean, I'm
You
sure
don't doubt that Israel stole the
yeah,
fissile
no, I don't doubt it.
material from America?
Or whomever, maybe America, maybe Great
Well, I mean, the
Britain,
evidence is that was America.
maybe
I'm
France.
saying we have the names and the dates
All
and the
right, well, then
places.
they did. The point is that I think that it probably would be true. I would imagine that a small country like Israel probably couldn't do a testing. Where would they do it? I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, so it would make sense to me that they probably purloined it. I don't doubt that. So what?
Well, I was saying from a logical perspective, there's really no reason to actually believe Israel has nuclear weapons. I was saying you could think that they have it, maybe they do. Saying Jimmy Carter denied it, and from the material.
Well, the Israelis deny it officially. I mean, they don't own this. I mean, this is and who was Mordechai Vanunu, who claimed to have known about it and blew the whistle on it back in the 1990s, I think, or the 80s.
Yeah, and it's unclear what exactly he did. He took a few pictures. Whatever evidence that he supposedly released is unclear whether that indicates Israel has nuclear weapons or all. Although he was kidnapped in Italy, and they used like some married woman to seduce him. It's kind of
now. Why do we need to?
They recruited a married woman to seduce him.
Yeah, exactly. Why do we need to talk about this? I mean, it seems to me that this is a national security question to Israel. Whether they have it or not, I would imagine that there's a benefit for Israel to allow the world to think they have it, because nuclear weapons are a deterrent. They're kind of a doomsday device. I mean, if the genocidal forces that seek to destroy Israel try to, it might keep them in check because they know that the Israelis will do something with it. Of course, who was it? The Rojatol Islam Hashemi Rafsanjani back in the 1990s was on record as saying that he didn't care if Israel used their nuclear bomb on Iran, because all they need to do is drop one on Tel Aviv to destroy Israel, whereas Iran could take several and they don't give a damn. They'll all go to paradise. So, Israel obviously is dealing with a very serious and genocidal threat. So sure, whether they have it or not, they probably have a pretty darn good reason for letting their enemies think they have it. I mean, to me, it just seems obvious from a strategic standpoint.
Well, I was saying if it's a bluff, you're saying, God forbid this bluff would work out extremely bad for Israel to say, okay, Charles, you're just a dumbass. I'm saying? Israel does not have nuclear weapons. Enough of your fantasies. Like, Israel would get her ass kicked in a war with Syria. If there was just a war with pure Syria versus Israel today, Israel does not have nuclear weapens. They would probably get their ass kicked.
No, I don't think that's true.
You might live in fantasy world. Like, no, Israel would easily
bomb on Damascus. I mean, I think that it has more to do with an ultimate doomsday device. If a nation wants to literally drop a bomb on Israel, they know that Israel is going to retaliate. The same way that the United States had the MAD, the mutually assured destruction doctrine that went all the way from when the Soviet Union got nuclear bombs right up till the collapse of the Soviet Union, and even to an extent today. There is a deterrent aspect to it, that the other guys know that we have it, or think we have it, we do have it, versus them, and it kind of leads to a stalemate. So I think that for strategic reasons, Israel maybe wants its enemies to think they have it, but in a conventional war between Israel and Syria, I don't think Israel would get its ass kicked. Israel, I think, can handle any conventional war. The problem is a nuclear bomb or a missile a nuclear missile from Iran. And in that sense, I think they want, at least whether they can respond or not, they have a reason to want the Iranians and the world to think they can.
Yeah, I mean, so I told you my theory maybe already a month ago that I told you I thought that Netanyahu is actually a CIA stooge, and if Israel has nuclear weapons, it's not Israel's, it's America, and it's probably the CIA or Americans running it, and that's why no Israelis know about it, because it's not them. And even America, when you see the American military leaders, it seems that the Israelis basically hand over the government to them. Like when Pompeo or the senior American officials go, it looks like they're in charge there, not the Israelis. And I wouldn't doubt that, because you're saying that it could be that, really the nuclear weapons that Israel has nothing to do with Israel's technological level. Maybe the uranium was originally stolen from the U.S., maybe not. And if they do have nuclear weapons, it's being manned by America, not Israel. That's my theory, and saying there's no real way to know. There's no one that me or you could ask.
Well,
there's no way for us to decipher it.
That's the point of it. You or I, we don't know what the hell is going on, because
I study physics. Like, I dedicated my life to Israel, and I'm telling you, I don't think we have them.
Yeah,
that's from my knowledge of America's nuclear weapon
physics. Fine, you don't know, and I don't know the inner workings of Israel's nuclear program. That is a very secret matter. We're not, nor would I hope we'd know it, because I mean, if we know it, then that means that the Iranians know it. I'm sure that it's, you're not going to get, you say, oh, well, Israeli, you haven't heard any Israelis talk about it? Of course. What do you expect them to go out and sit at a bar and shoot the breeze about this? I mean, this is a very, very serious secret thing. And whether or not the United States is involved.
One thing I don't get, why does it need to be secret? You're saying like North Korea, all these other countries, it's not secret. Even like Jimmy Carter just said straight up, I know the Israelis. If the Israelis had a nuke, they would have tested it and dropped it. Like Israel, all its posturing and being tough, there's nothing it could do that would make Israel more tougher than to test a nuclear weapon. And saying that's what Jimmy Carter said. Like, Israelis, you think Israelis would be sitting on this?
I wouldn't trust Jimmy Carter, the author of a book claiming that Israel's an apartheid state. But putting that aside,
your knowledge of Israelis, you think Israelis have this and wouldn't have used it?
I have no idea whether they have it. I mean, and if they did, I don't know. Maybe
you just said you thought they have it. I mean, you seem pretty sure that you think.
No, my comments are that I have no idea. It's top secret. I think that they would have a reasonable strategic reason for letting people think they have it, whether they do or not. I think there were rumors that they tested something off the coast of South Africa back in the 1980s. And when
they were trying to secretly provide South Africa with nuclear weapons, and maybe there was
they were testing it for their own Israel, whatever it is. And as far as the United States running it, probably. I mean, if they have it, maybe it's in conjunction with the United States. I mean, it is a close alliance. It doesn't mean the U.S. is running Israeli foreign policy. It means that they have shared interests in terms of maintaining a nuclear presence in the Middle East.
Colin Powell years ago estimated that Israel has about 300 nuclear warheads, and saying Colin Powell gave that information. He's saying he knows because there are warheads as Americans, and he knew about it.
So Israel
didn't make those warheads. America gave those warheads to Israel.
However,
you do care, because I mean, that's why I want to talk about Biden.
All right,
saying that I agree that Biden is correct. If this letter exists, he shouldn't sign it. That whatever this letter is, there's absolutely no reason the U.S. should sign it.
First of all, I don't care if the United States is more directly or to the degree they're involved in Israel's nuclear program, because I think that both the United States and Israel have mutual interest in defending the state of Israel. Whether it's Israel running it or whether they're running it in conjunction with the United States, I trust the fact that they both have mutual interest. Now, what is the deal about Biden's letter?
Well, I sent the story. It's unclear. What it appears to be is there's been this secret letter for going back to maybe even Bush Sr., that the presidents of the U.S. signed, like an oath that they're not going to reveal or talk about Israel's nuclear weapon program. And
what about it?
So Biden, it's being floated that he's refusing to sign this letter. So I mean, there's two things: that does this letter actually exist or not? And you look historically, it's been mentioned. It was an article in the New Yorker that was covering it, and they had already mentioned, this letter back, with Trump's presidency. There'd been down low comments back about it under Bush Sr. But if it's a question of does this letter exist, and for whatever reason, let's say, the past decades, U.S. presidents have been signing it and keeping it secret, is there any reason for Biden to sign this and uphold that agreement? Like, from an American perspective, I would say no. Like, why the hell would Biden sign this letter? And you're saying, like, you think Biden should sign this letter?
I haven't said anything. I mean, but the point is, so let's just define what this alleged letter is. It's an agreement between the United States and Israel that goes back maybe, I don't know, to the Bush administration or Reagan, I don't know, that basically says that the United States is going to cooperate with a secret, keep the nuclear aspect of Israel's policy secret, that they're not going to discuss Israel's nuclear. I mean, why not? I mean, I don't think the United States, if they want to keep it secret, fine. Now, the fact that Biden is not agreeing to this, what is he going to do now? Go out and announce that Israel is a nuclear bomb? I mean, what does that mean?
Well, two perspectives. Saying, let's say there's three. Really, there's more possibilities because it could be Russia or not. Like the source of Israel's nuclear weapons could be a different source besides the U.S. But I mean, the possibility that Israel has nuclear weapons that they completely developed independently on her own, or that Israel does not have the capabilities to have developed nuclear weapons and that it's a complete bluff, they don't have them,
Okay.
or that Israel has nuclear weapons, but they did not develop them. They got them either from the U.S. or Russia. And then, so the various possibilities makes it different. So if Biden is upholding the bluff that say, I would assume the U.S. intelligence probably knows. It's unlikely that Israel has a nuclear weapon in Israel and America doesn't know about it. America probably knows whether Israel has nukes or not. So if Biden is upholding Israel's bluff and he says like, no, I'm sorry, like it's been a bluff. Israel has no nuclear weapons. As the president of the United States, I'm telling you that Israel has no nuclear weapons. If Israel wants to bluff, they can. But all of our knowledge says they don't have them.
What would the United States gain by if Israel had no nuclear weapon? What would the United States gain by revealing?
Because what I'm saying, if Israel has a nuclear weapon, it's a rogue regime that should be meant to come into compliance with the non-proliferation treaty, and the U.S. Probably Israel should be sanctioned. I mean, like from an international perspective,
but maybe
if Israel has illegal nuclear weapons, they should be sanctioned. They should be.
All right. Well, what if, let's say it's revealed that Israel does have nuclear weapons, so they would join the non-proliferation agreement. I mean, I don't think that would be a big deal. They might have an inspection, whatever.
No, they probably would have to get rid of their nuclear weapons. I said it's very unlikely that Israel would be able to maintain their nuclear weapons under the non-proliferation treaty.
Is there any other nuclear nation that was forced to get rid of their nuclear weapons? I mean, maybe not. The point is that
because you can't. But I'm saying that the treaty and the enforcement would make Israel get rid of them, whether they could force it or not. Be like Israel would turn into North Korea. Or in that sense, where there's a rogue regime.
Well, then
even India. I'm saying India also hasn't.
India has nuclear weapons, exactly. So I guess,
but they also have refused to take part in the non-proliferation,
and they're fine. I guess. Look, the point is that I don't know if the United States strategically gains anything by revealing something one way or the other that had been secret, because it seems to me that by revealing that publicly, it probably would be damaging to Israel. So why do it? I mean, why not continue the policy of the status quo in terms of Israel's national defense, which is legitimate and appropriate, and stay out of it? I mean, why would they reveal this?
Well, I mean, because besides the large American Jewish population, Iran is a more strategic, important ally than Israel. Just saying, relatively, if the U.S. turned against Israel and made peace with Iran, it would, besides the fact that there's so many American Jews that would be against it, it would probably strategically be better for the U.S. to do that. And it's largely the American Jewish constituency that's pushing, in favor of Israel against Iran. And then it's just like, why shouldn't we feel the same way about Iran? In the sense, like, you're a Jew and you feel that way about Israel, obviously. But like, if you're North Korean, why don't you feel that way about North Korean? Or if you're Iranian, you say Iran should have nuclear weapons. Israel is an existential threat to Iran. They've proven it. We've been killing their scientists, killing their army for decades. And Iran deserves to have nuclear weapons in order to defend herself from Israel.
So yes, well, I mean, look, I don't want to have another tangent here, but you're suggesting it's a good idea for Iran to have nuclear weapons. First
Well, I'm
of
saying
all,
the exact same logic that you're using.
but I want
There's
to
nothing
comment.
special
Hold on.
about. There's nothing special about your argument besides the fact that there's
Yes,
so many
there is.
Jews in America pushing
Not just
the
Jews.
argument that you're giving. But there's no reason why Israel should try to force Iran to not get nuclear weapons and then hide it. So Israel could defend herself.
But this
Besides that, we
question
like the
is-
Jews. We love the Jews. We have so many Jews here in
Yeah,
America.
but I
So
talk.
obviously, we're taking the side of Israel because we
Dooovid,
like the Jews.
you're just yammering along here. I want to have a little chance to talk here. First of all, and don't interrupt me. First of all, Israel has never been to the advantage of the United States to recognize Israel. When Harry Truman recognized Israel in 1948, he was surrounded by big oil companies, the Council on Foreign Relations, the entire left international establishment saying, no, don't recognize Israel because it's going to hurt our relations with these wealthy Arab nations like Iran and Saudi Arabia, who have all this resources and this population. It's going to PO the entire world. So don't do it. And they were right, technically. Israel has no oil. Israel has no money. They don't have anything like, superpowers. It's a tiny,
Israel has.
Excuse me, I'm not done. They have a tiny swath of land that is not anything that, is more powerful than any other nation. But Truman did do it, and he was backed by both liberals and conservatives, Democrats and Republicans, and by the American people. And the reason he was backed by the American people, as opposed to the international establishment, which was anti-Israel, was because it was the right thing to do, to have a sovereign state recognized for the Jewish people. And because it was a religious thing to do, because it sets the stage for the Messiah. It is a religious imperative for Christians and Jews, and for a lot of other rational reasons. The United States supports sovereignty for nations in the world. We supported it after World War I, when in the Treaty of Paris, we recognized new nations like Czechoslovakia and Poland and other nations that had not been independent before World War I. We recognized sovereignty because we fought for our own sovereignty against the British in 1776. So it's not a matter of who is more powerful. Sure, the Iranians are more powerful. Of course, the United States, we'd make a ton of money and we would have great business relations. I mean, that's what the CFR has been pushing since day one. But we do it, we recognize Israel because it is the moral thing to do, because it's the right thing to do, not because it's going to be a successful thing on the geopolitical stage. And I think that same principle continues to apply. Now, that doesn't mean that by recognizing Israel and by putting Israel first, we can't have, therefore, and Israel for that matter, can't have a normalization of relations with Arab and Muslim countries, even including Iran. I think that was proven most recently during the presidency of Donald Trump by the Abraham Accords, by the recognition by Morocco of moving an embassy to Jerusalem, by Kosovo moving an embassy to Jerusalem. And apparently Oman was about to do it when Trump was removed from office, so they're now thinking twice. Now you have an administration that is tilting in the direction of Iran, just like Obama did when he stopped the boycott and he released all of their funds and they arrived on pallets. And Iran is exporting their revolution to other Arab nations like Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Syria. I think that that is not a good policy, not only for the state of Israel and the United States, but it's not a good policy for most of the Arab world. And, maybe Iran has, as you say, they've got all this money, they've got oil, sure. But, there are other factors to consider here. There are human factors.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone buys what you just said. I mean, that's like textbook Hasbora that like not even Jews buy, and saying like most people think that it's because there's a ton of Jews living in America that are powerful, that it's absolutely has nothing to do with morals or the right thing to do. It's because there's 10 million Jews in America and we push for it and we're very rich and powerful. And, there's less Arabs and Muslims.
Like you're embracing a lot of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. First of all,
I'm a lobbyist.
no,
Like,
you're
I'm trained to be a
you're
lobbyist. Like,
embracing
this is what I do,
anti-Semitic.
Charles. I'm a
And, yeah,
lobbyist.
and you talk, and by the way, you also talk to a lot of anti-Semites like Ryan Dawson and others.
I never
Look,
spoke to Dawson.
you just quoted him when we started the interview today.
Well, I did
Oh,
quote him.
Ryan Dawson.
That's where I heard about the.
Oh, that is okay, fine. The point is that no, it's not just Jews in America who support Israel. Christians in America support Israel. Liberals in America support Israel. There have been polls recently done by, I think it's the Gallup, who's been doing polls since the 1930s. It's a very respectable polling organization, which show that I think that Israel is supported by 85% of Republicans and just about 50% of Democrats. So Israel has been and is supported by the vast majority of the American people, not just Jews. In fact, if anything, the more religious Christians are even in many cases more supportive of Israel than the American Jewish community. So it's not just a bunch of rich Jews, as you just said, which is an anti-Semitic canard. That is why we support Israel. We support Israel for very complex and very broad reasons. And I'm really, I'm a little disgusted.
Because you never wrote a check, Charles. I'm sorry. You might be a Republican, but Republican Jewish commentators are completely worthless. The Republicans that are worthwhile are the ones who write big checks. And that's why, and it's saying like, no, I'm saying like, I'm a lobbyist. I do things for Israel and the Jewish people. And we usually get it done by writing big checks. Have you ever got something done for Israel or the Jewish people?
Well, I could tell you who's writing the really big checks in this country. The anti-Israel crowd, people that are members of the Council on Foreign Relations, the liberal establishment is not writing checks.
They don't write big checks. I mean, like Sheldon Adelson, like Saban,
Fine. There's
like any of those people. It's like just demographically, like how many Arabs,
Look at what about the
how many Iranians are in America?
You want to talk about money and oil and huge wealth? What about the Sheikh of Saudi Arabia? Do you think that he wrote a check to the Clinton Foundation? He bought the Clinton Library for $10 billion. I think that if you're going to talk about money, there's a lot more money on the anti-Israel side. I mean, in fact, that's how you started this conversation by saying, oh, well, we could make a lot more money in this country if we throw Israel under the bus and side with Iran.
I didn't mention money. I didn't say anything about money in terms. I just said.
No, you said because they have all this power and this oil and this great wealth.
I said strategically that Iran is a more logical ally,
of course,
than Israel.
To Truman. The point that I'm making here is that the big money is not with the Jews. Yeah, you have Adelson, sure. But the big money.
Speak for yourself, Charles. If you're poor, that's your problem, not mine. Speak for yourself.
I'm not speaking for myself. You look.
Speak for yourself. You say, I'm sorry.
I'm looking at the Forbes magazine.
If you don't know rich Jews, I'm sorry. I'll introduce you to some.
Rich Jews. I'm saying that they're not in the same league as the anti-Israel rich people in the world. If you take a look at the top wealth owners in the world, they're not, first of all, they're not Jews. I don't think, the few of them are, but for the most of them are not. And they're the ones who, are pushing the anti-Israel agenda. So I don't think that to suggest that, rich Jews are behind support of Israel, that's an anti-Semitic canal.
I didn't say necessarily.
Yes, you did.
Well, I was saying that. No, I was saying demographics.
And you have
it's numbers and demographics. Like even
if I don't realize that there are so many wealthy Jews.
Yes, I know Sheldon Adelson. I met him. I know people that met him. He wrote a really, really big check. Yeah, that makes a difference.
And I'm sure that there are people who are writing really, really big checks that back groups.
Yeah, in Michigan, the head of the Michigan GOP, Wiesner, is a Republican, and the reason he is head of the Republican Party is because he writes really, really big checks. There's no dispute about that. There was elections, and it came out, and everyone agrees that the reason Wiesner is head of the GOP in Michigan is because he has hundreds of millions of dollars and gives a lot of money.
And the fact that you have wealthy Jews who are a tiny minority of the true wealthy people in the world are writing checks to Israel that this is why the United States supports Israel, that is an anti-Semitic canard, and I'm disgusted that you would say that.
Well, no, I mean, I'm saying I'm proud of Jewish wealth. And we should be proud of it. It's like, no, like I'm here in Michigan. I know who our rich people are. I know that. I mean, there's Meyer up in Michigan somewhere. There's Betsy DeVos's brother Prince, but they don't have nearly the wealth as the rich Jews.
What about Bill Gates? What about Warren Buffett? They're not.
I'm saying just here in Michigan. Saying
Michigan. look,
Was
yeah, the fact that you would
Dan
suggest,
Gilbert is worth like tens of billions of dollars.
good for him, and I'm
There's not
proud
even
of
a
him.
close. There's
The
not
fact
even a
that you
close
would,
second.
the fact that you
The
would suggest that this is why the United States supports Israel because of some rich Jews who put money into this, that's wrong and it's vicious. They
well,
support
because I'm
Israel
telling you
because the
one,
American
two thing.
people
You
support.
haven't done anything for Israel. You haven't wrote a check. You want to do something for Israel, make some money and write a check. I'm
No,
telling you, as a Jew,
I contribute by basically doing this program and
there's no
shooting down
there's no
anti-Semites
contribution.
like you. That's what my contribution is to Israel. Everybody does their own thing.
Well, okay, I mean, you could take credit for something that you think you did a big deal of, saying like you want to do more, you write a check. But I mean, we don't have to argue that. And I'm saying I didn't even want to discuss the money because I think it's pure demographics, and that's changing. If you look at Canada,
Dooovid, you're listening to too many anti-Semites, and
I don't listen to any anti-Semites, Charles. I read Torah. I even call like
you were on with what's his name, that professor from I forget his name now.
Dutton.
No, not well. There's another one.
He was paid by a Jew to talk to me, and he said that Dutton was paid by a Jew to talk to me.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm trying.
Well, I'm telling you, like a Jew.
I'm trying to. Oh, Kevin
paid him to talk to me.
Kevin so and so. What was his last name? You know who?
Kevin Barrett.
Yes.
I never even heard of the guy. He reached out to talk to me. I never even heard of the guy.
The point is, I think that you're being influenced by these people. In some of your,
I live in a black neighborhood. Like the only white people I
but I hear your attitude about Israel and about Jews and that the big Jewish wealth is why we're supporting Israel. That's anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and it's wrong.
Well, because money is a big deal.
But that's not why we support Israel. The United States.
Well, who's we? You're talking about.
I'm talking about
when you talk. There is no we. You don't get to talk for the United States of America. You get to talk for yourself.
I get to talk about the Gallup.
You get to talk for yourself, not America.
That the vast majority of the American people, of which I'm a member, support Israel. It's not for money. You have huge, both liberal and conservative, Democrat and Republican. You could look at any polling done, even most recently. They support Israel, not because of money, not because some rich Jewish businessman contributes. They do it for very complex reasons. We've gone over this. Israel is supported in the United States because Americans resonate with Israel as a sovereign state, because they resonate with the Jewish ideals of Israel as Christians and as Jews. That's as someone a very organic thing why we support Israel. It's not because someone's not some turf person showing up and buying their way. They don't need to do that. Israel is supported by both parties. I think the real wealth in this country would like to throw Israel under the bus, but they can't because it's supported by the American people. It's not, this isn't, you're barking up some kind of anti-Semitic thing.
I mean, no offense, but don't listen to poor people talk about money, folks. I'm sorry. Like Charles is a good guy, but
what the hell are you talking about? I'm talking about polls. I'll go over it again. Of the vast majority of American people at all economic levels who support the state of Israel. It's obvious. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I'm telling you, as someone who's dedicated my whole adult life to supporting Judaism and Israeli causes, that money is probably the single biggest factor.
Well, I think you're dead wrong, and I think that's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. It is not
anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that I helped raise millions and millions of dollars for Israel. I'm an anti-Semite because I helped raise money for Israeli organizations and Jewish organizations.
Right, and by the way,
and I tell you that from the things that I've seen people accomplish, most of it was done through money.
Yeah, but again, that is a separate question in terms of as opposed to why the American people generally support Israel. They don't do it because somebody's spending a lot of money.
I'm saying the American people. I'm saying the politicians. The American people.
Well, the politicians.
You didn't even let me get to the main point, and it's the demographics. That there's just so many Jews in America.
You're right. How many Jews are in America? The 2%, 1%.
Yeah. So historically, now it's changing with since 1965. But there's more Jews in America than there are Arabs and Muslims put together. In fact,
maybe. But
when Truman was president, there was probably like 100 times more Jews than there was Muslims.
Fine, but how many Jews are there compared to the entire population of the country?
Well, the number of Jews hasn't really increased. So if it was about
probably that maybe at most 2%.
I think it was, I mean, it used to be around World War II, it was about 3%. In the time of Truman, Jews made up about 3% of America. Now we probably only make up about 2%. Our population decreased as other people did. But in terms
All
of
right.
minorities,
So then let me
in
ask
the time of Truman, Jews were really one of like the top 5 minorities that there wasn't there. I mean, even today, it's very small, but there was no Muslim, Arab, or Iranian constituency in America. They were just seen as different. Jews are Americans. We've been in America for over 100 years. Our population in America is actually in the decline. In Metro Detroit, there was probably as much as 200,000 Jews close to 80 years ago. Now it's down to 70,000. And that's a voting bloc. And as a term, there was no voice for Arabs, the Middle East. So in terms of money, so if you just turn in terms of money, it could be, okay, some wealthy Arabs could probably not. But even if the wealthy Arabs could put down more money than Americans, you're talking about a demographic bloc where there's millions of Jews in America. And until recently, there probably wasn't more than a total million Arabs and Muslims put together. I mean, you had some Syrians that were here. I mean, you agree with the demographic sense.
If we agree that the Jews have never made up more than maybe at most 3% of the population of the United States, probably.
But that's 100 times larger than the Arabs or Muslims.
I get that. I don't think that's relevant. The point is that
why is that not relevant? Because if you have 2 million Jews in New York and you only have 30,000 Muslims, how are they going to make a difference?
I'll tell you why. Because if there's only 2% of Jews in this country versus out of 100%, why then do consistent polls right up to recently show that the overwhelming number of American people support Israel? I mean, if Jews are only 2% and you have the American people up to 70, 80% supporting Israel, that, how do you explain that? I mean, that's why politicians support Israel, because they want to get elected.
Unfortunately, it's probably because we're white. You're saying, like, in the time of Truman till the last few years, it was probably because we're white.
I don't think that's true. I mean, I think that non-white people support Israel as well. I mean, maybe not quite as much, but, I don't think that if you polled African Americans, I bet you they support Israel mostly, the majority, and Hispanics and Asians. I mean, it's an American thing. And it remains so. And the Arabs have nothing to do with this. Even Arabs.
So you're arguing that
anti-Israel. I mean,
let's say Israel has nuclear weapons, and let's say they're even completely made by Israel. That Israel developed and enriched its own uranium, has nothing to do with anything else. America should help Israel keep that secret. That Biden should sign that letter.
If it's in Israel's national interest, yes. Why shouldn't we?
You say, well, obviously, maybe Israel's national interest. We're saying, as an American, that why the hell should the American president cover up for Israel's illegal nuclear weapon program?
Because it helps Israel and it doesn't hurt us. And by the way,
of course, it hurts us.
Well, I mean, the idea that you would suggest that Israel plans to use if Israel has nuclear facilities, they're going to use that aggressively.
In my opinion, I agree with Carter. If Israel had nuclear weapons, they would have used them.
That's ridiculous, and that's a vicious.
You're speaking to a man who, I
don't believe.
You don't even know Hebrew. I studied in Israel 3 years. I've helped raise.
Do you think the Israelis
countless money?
What would they do? What would they do? Drop a bomb on Damascus? I mean, I don't think so. No, Israel would not use a nuclear weapon aggressively.
Israel has been carrying out assassinations and bombings for decades. Like, there's absolutely no reason to think we wouldn't have dropped the nuclear bomb.
They're stopping people who are trying to kill Jews. That's a rightful, moral, national defense.
In your opinion. Well, that's your opinion on that
if
one.
There's a scientist,
but it's saying if that's the case, let's just nuke them.
No. If there's a scientist in Iran who is developing a nuclear missile that's going to hit Tel Aviv, Israel has a right as a national defense to stop that from happening. They don't have to drop a nuclear bomb. It's more to do with Israel. Actually, from a strategic standpoint, has had a theory that I think they've stuck to, not perfectly, but pretty well. And that is that in their attempt to stop and to neutralize those who are trying to genocide the state, they will go after the very specific target, and they will stop that target. They don't have to drop. I mean, if they, during the Hamas thing, Israel could have dropped a bomb on Gaza and ended the whole friggin' thing in a minute, but they didn't do that. Instead, They sent select troops into Gaza to stop the terror tunnels and stop the missile sites, and did so at the cost of 85 Jewish lives. They didn't have to do that. They could have just done away with it. That's probably what any other nation would have
I don't think so. I'm saying, like, I don't know how much you know about military science or these things, but like, no, I don't think so. I don't know if it pays
Well, that's just the
to
fact
argue about this, but I'm saying, like, no,
that's how
there's a
they
lot of
conducted
expertise
the
to
Hamas
say,
war. They did not go in and simply drop a bomb on Gaza and get done.
well, I mean, you need boots on the ground.
They
I mean,
could have.
We dropped bombs on Gaza. We had air raids for
Maybe
like weeks.
only very
We killed like over 1,000 people, and like 2,000 people got killed in air raids, including.
Dooovid, you're worse than Hamas.
God forbid. You're saying I'm worse. I dedicated my life to Judaism.
Then why are you parroting the Hamas line here? Do you think that they go in?
I'm not parroting. This is just military fact.
Yeah, the military fact is that they tried to do this with the least number of.
Charles, the difference, military science has nothing to do with morality.
The record is very.
If you want to talk military science, you have to stop talking about morality. There's no morality in military science. Military science is about killing people. It's not about morality.
Enemies, but Israel has a very good record, a better record, frankly, than the United States, in terms of having to confront a genocidal enemy and going in and very strategically stopping that specific individual who is trying to kill them. They don't
overplay the threat.
Kill innocent people. They overplayed the threat.
I'm saying you overplayed the threat of a bunch of homeless Palestinians on Israel when you say, like, no, they're just a bunch of homeless Palestinians.
Oh, I see. So then the Palestinians, by the way, the average Palestinian.
They're saying, like, no, I know a lot of people who fought the war in Lebanon. And, I've heard people, people that were killed, people that have permanent injuries, people that can never walk again. And it's pretty much an agreement that Israel lost the battle in Lebanon. We did a bunch of bombing, but the ground campaign, we lost. And even in Gaza, it's saying eventually you need boots on the ground. And to a certain extent, we lost that battle. And it's like, I know that, okay, like, I like Israel, but I'm not going to play up. And so you think it pays. Let's pretend like Israel's so powerful when we're really not. Charles is doing such a favor for the Jewish people by pretending that we're so powerful when we're not. And so that you're not doing any favor to Israel by that.
I'm not saying they're powerful. I'm saying that Israel is confronting a genocide.
Homeless Palestinians. With genocide, we're confronting
the average Palestinian is not really an enemy of Israel. I actually think that most Palestinians respect Israel. My evidence of this is admittedly anecdotal, in that I worked at a spice factory on the Gaza border for a summer. And in that experience, I got to know Palestinians who would come in from Gaza every day to work there. And my impression, and again, I'm talking here as a naive American, an outsider, was that the average Palestinian Arab worker that I befriended, and I tended to hang out more with the Palestinians than the Israelis. They admired Israel, they liked Israel, but they wanted to see a sovereign Palestinian state in Gaza. And I understood that, and I agreed with that. And I think that they should have had that, but they couldn't get it because their leadership didn't want that. Their leadership wanted to destroy Israel itself. That's why when Israel gave them Gaza and stripped away Judenrein, took all the Jews out of it, and handed businesses over to them and gave them money, and while the world poured in resources and helped them build a local government and a police department and an infrastructure, they turned it into a launching pad to try to destroy Israel. That's what the problem was, not the average Palestinian. The average Palestinian would have been happy to have had that sovereignty, and they would have gotten a lot more and coexisted with Israel. It is that leadership. It's the moneyed leadership, I may add, that doesn't give a damn about the Palestinian citizen. They just want to destroy the state of Israel. And in that context, Israel has a right and a moral obligation to defend the lives of its citizens, its men, its women, its children, its Holocaust survivors. Israel, like any other nation in the world, has a right to do that. And in the course of their doing it, they behave with great restraint, I would suggest. A war is a war. People are killed. But in that context of a war that is being visited on them, they operate with great restraint. And you are spouting leftist, propaganda here. trying to portray Israel as engaging.
No, I'm saying I'm someone who studied physics in military science.
Well,
I'm talking
don't know
about the
where
pure
the hell you
military
studied.
science. I'm not spouting
I have a feeling
ideas.
you're studying at the foot of your own congresswoman, probably, Rashida Tlaib.
Well, I mean, I like to live in.
I bet you.
I'm neighbors with Brenda Lawrence.
Yeah, and how do you feel about the fact that she said that the Holocaust made her feel warm and fuzzy? Do you think that was a nice thing to say?
I don't think she said that.
Look it up. Look it up. It was in all the media.
I know it was in all the media, but I mean, I don't think she said it.
It's on tape. Go to
YouTube. I mean, I know what she said. And
she said, and you don't think that reflects what she believes about Israel and about Jews? I think it does. I wonder why the media, by the way, didn't get into that about her. Instead, they're talking about the stupid comment made by that congresswoman from Georgia about lasers and something, But I mean, to me, that Tlaib's attitude is much more harmful, and much more dangerous, and much more hateful. But anyways,
says the white Jew.
That's, first of all, you don't know my racial background. And secondly, as a Jew, I know when I hear anti-Semitism, I can smell it.
No, you don't.
Oh, yes.
As a Jew, you have no special authority on knowing what anti-Semitism
like any other
is.
Jew, I can.
No, if there's anti-Semitism, you as a Jew don't. Oh, I'm a Jew. I know that. That's extremely dangerous and it's dumb. How, as a Jew, do you have some special sense about anti-Semitism? What logic do you have? How do you know?
If I were black, I'd know what racism looked like. It's kind of an instinct. And by the way, I use that term very carefully. I don't claim that, in this sense, I actually agree with Dr. E. Michael Jones, who says that groups like the ADL, they'll call anyone an anti-Semite if they don't kowtow out of the left.
You're calling me an anti-Semite here, and I've done more for Israel than you have. You're looking at someone who's done 100 times more for Israel than you, and you're still calling me an anti-Semite.
Someone who takes a position.
That I've done way more for Israel than you have, and you're still calling me an anti-Semite. Right? You just called me an anti-Semite, even though I've done way more than Israel for you.
You sound like you're spouting exact things that I hear coming out of Hamas and about the radical left, who is anti-Semitic. Now, I don't know.
So you say I should keep this secret. If I help Jews raise a bunch of money and donate it to politicians in order that they do.
Well, then why are you spouting Hamas's party line? If you're so pro-Israel, why are you spouting, atrocity propaganda against the state of Israel and emphasizing negative and this business about the rich Jews is why the United States supports Israel? This is classic anti-Semitism.
I mean, one thing, if Charles does not speak on behalf of money, people are better.
Apparently, you do.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's probably why these people want to speak to me and not you, because you can't write a check.
How do you know who can write a check?
Dooovid knows a lot of people who write big checks.
Oh, good for you.
I don't write a check. But you're saying you don't know anyone who writes big checks. That's probably these people want to speak to me, not you. I mean, you agree?
I don't know what the hell. All I know is that you are spouting classic anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. The rich
because telling I have a bunch of rich Jewish friends that write big checks. I'm a classic anti-Semite because telling you I know a bunch of rich Jews that write big checks, that makes me an anti-Semite.
Yeah, but it's what you conclude from that. I don't doubt that there were.
If I conclude that the politician that we had to buy off only did what we said because we bought him off, I'm an anti-Semite.
Actually, that is an anti-Semitic conspiracy.
It's an anti-Semitic to buy off a politician to
it is anti-Semitic
legally in order that they do things for the Jewish people in Israel.
No, it is anti-Semitic to suggest that a rich Jew is why Americans and American politicians support Israel. Yeah, I say that's anti-Semitic, and it's false.
Well, what if it's true? What if the fact that we had a meeting, we were there, and we wrote a really big check, and the person said, we're going to do what you said.
There are people who write big checks for a lot of things. That doesn't mean that that's why they support Israel. They support Israel because the American people support Israel, and they want to get reelected.
Says a man who never wrote a check.
Says a man who looks at the Gallup polls and who looks at every single poll.
Says the man who never wrote a check. So
and how do you explain the fact that the Gallup poll
you're saying that they do it because
shows that the vast majority of Americans support Israel.
You're saying that
if they do,
politicians are doing it because they think it's the moral and this. And
I'm saying they're doing
it because me and a bunch of my friends raised a bunch of money and legally bribed them.
No,
and you're
I'm saying that the politician is doing it because they want to get elected, and they look at the polls, they look at the Gallup.
They need money. And the politician wants to get elected. The vast majority of people
support Israel, and I want to get elected, so I support Israel. Whether they personally do or not is almost beside the point. Politicians do what they have to do to get elected. Sure, Israelis contribute money to them, or Jews. That's not the main reason. They want to get elected. The mayor of Boston wants to get reelected. If he came out against Israel, he wouldn't get reelected because the vast majority of people in this city support Israel.
Yeah, but
It's
you
just
belie the
that's why
facts.
what they're responding to. Look, I happen to know something about this, Dooovid, because I ran for Congress. I know a little bit more about it than you. Politicians take a look at
I support Trump, who doesn't back loser. I appreciate you running for Congress, good man, but like Trump, I'm going to back the winner, not the loser.
They triangulate when they run for office and say, this group supports this and that group supports that. So here's what I'm going to do because I want to get elected. I'm not saying I did that, but I'm just saying that most
you lost to a gay Jew, right? You're less popular than a gay Jew.
What are you talking about? I mean, most politicians...
Didn't Barney Frank destroy you?
Yeah, but so what? The point is that I'm talking about my experience of being on the inside of this thing and seeing...
You got destroyed by Barney Frank? You're saying like that you're going to put that on your resume?
Yeah, but I don't think that Barney Frank destroyed me because he's a gay Jew. I think he destroyed me because he's a big liberal politician and a cult figure in Boston. And that's hard to take on. The point is that,
what about Sheldon Adelson, all the money he gave, and he clearly said he wants you... I mean, his policy were clear. Sheldon Adelson gave money and he made one demand, and it was about Israel. And you're telling all these Republicans that Sheldon Adelson gave this huge amount of money to, they didn't actually do what they did for Israel because Sheldon Adelson gave them the money. They did because it's the right thing to do, and they just took the money because why not? And you're saying like, no, they did it because he wrote them the checks. And you are spitting in the face of the Jews who wrote those checks by saying what you're saying.
No, I didn't say that they did it because it's necessarily the right thing to do, although I think maybe...
They did it because we wrote them checks, and you're spitting in the face of those people who wrote them checks.
They want to get elected, and the vast majority of people support Israel. If the vast majority of people did not support Israel, then there would be no amount of money that could make them support Israel. They're going to do what they have to do to get elected. And the vast majority of people support Israel in the United States. Now, that may change in the future. I don't think it will. But the fact is that is why they do it. Now, the fact that Jews lobby them and give them money, you have lobbyists from all sides giving money and, trying to get different things to happen. The fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, the politician has to get elected. They have to look at their constituency. They have to ask what their constituency wants, and they have to give it to them, or they won't get elected. That is how...
So that's why Biden... That's why Biden's not going to sign the letter. And that's why Biden's not going to sign that letter.
What does that have to do with it?
Because what you said, he has to look at his constituency, how he got elected, and his constituencies do not want him signing that letter and covering up for Israel's secret nuclear weapon program.
And he won't sign it. Fine. The point is, first of all, Biden's poll numbers are less than 50%. And secondly, we don't want to talk about how he got elected because I'll get kicked off YouTube. Putting that aside, he is going to be pro-Israel ultimately because every American president has been since Truman, because that's what the American people support. Not because of some anti-Semitic...
because his grandkids are Jewish. Not because it's his own self-interest because his grandkids are Jewish. You're saying because he's going to do it because it's morally the right thing.
I didn't say American
that. He's doing that because he looks at his Jewish grandkids and wants to keep them safe. He said it himself. He's doing it because of his own Jewish blood. Charlottesville. He's scared that for his own Jewish grandkids.
Good for him. I don't know if he's doing it because he morally supports Israel. Some politicians do and some don't. He's doing it because politicians, again...
He's doing it because he's scared for his own Jewish grandkids. You're rejecting that?
Then I commend him for that. But the point is that politicians ultimately respond to what the American people want because they want to stay in office. They want to get elected and they want to get reelected. And the American people support Israel. It's not me saying this. It is every single major poll that has been done right up till recently saying this. And that's why Israel supported, not because of some conspiracy by rich Jews. I'm sorry, but that's not what's going on.
Americans support Israel on the right because we kill people, because we're really, really good at violence. That's why they support us, because we kill their enemies.
Because the Israelis kill people, that's why they support Israel?
What is it that America likes so much? Like even Richard Spencer, like the alt-right, Israel is extremely good at violence. That's what we're good at. That's what they respect us for. You agree that's the essential thing that Israel is respected for among the right in America, is that our brilliant use of violence.
I don't think that's true at all. That's bullshit. I don't.
That's BS. You said that you're saying like we killed these people. Like America
Israel
wanted
doesn't
these people
kill
dead. They couldn't do it, and Israel got them killed. That's why they love us.
Israel does not kill people. Okay, Israel is in a state of war, and they will stop individuals who are trying to kill them. They don't go out and kill people. Who are you talking to? And how is this like talking to Hezbollah? What the hell are you talking about, Dooovid? They're not killing people. What
Of
kind
course
of
we are. Of course we are.
just
I mean,
explained it. In the course of a war, look at, did the United States kill people when we
help kill
landed at
Soleiman? Didn't we kill like all those nuclear engineers? Aren't we bombing
Yeah,
Syria
because
every
they
other
were
day?
planning on.
Aren't we doing targeted assassinations all over
Thank
the
you.
place?
Because they're planning on setting up missiles to destroy Tel Aviv. That is a military attack. That's not killing innocent people.
Well, I didn't say we're killing
Did the
innocent
United
people. I
States,
said
let me
that
ask you this.
we're killing people, and that's why the U.S.
Did the
respects us
United
because we're good
States
at killing
kill
people.
people when we landed at the beaches of Normandy? Do you think Eisenhower was sitting there in a?
Of course. But I'm saying,
Yeah,
why does the U.S.
people
why
in
does
those
the U.S. right like Israel? And it's because of our use of violence. We're extremely good at violence. I mean, you're rejecting that. You just said that we're really good at violence, and now you're saying that you're saying that they don't like us for that reason.
Israel is. It's not a matter of being good at violence. It's a matter of self-defense. It's a matter of.
I'm not talking about
sovereignty.
Charles, you're making the conversation useless by bringing morality. I'm not talking about morality. I'm even looking at the world in a way like a nihilistic way. I'm accepting that there may be absolutely no such thing as good and bad. That to have this conversation, I'm saying maybe there is no such thing as good and bad. We're looking at pure technique in what is done, and it's saying Israel is extremely good at killing bad guys. America respects Israel because we're really good at killing bad guys.
Israel is good at defending its sovereignty and the lives and property of its own people by stopping.
But you're just changing the words around. You're changing the words around.
No, I'm stating that as a policy they have.
If you were a man of violence who enjoys violence, would you stop
throwing bombs on Gaza?
Well, you're not making any sense, Charles. You say if you were a man of violence in the military, would you respect someone who's good at violence and good with the military?
I would respect people who are defending the sovereignty of whoever is being attacked. I believe in
saying that's not why they like us. They like us because we're good at violence. They don't think that we're good and moral. They think that we're really good at violence, and that's why they like us. I agree with
St. Thomas Aquinas' theory of the just war. Israel is in a war and they're defending themselves. It's not that they're good at violence.
You're saying we're not good at violence?
I'm saying that they're good at defending themselves. I'm not going to go around this merry-go-round with you again. This is ridiculous. They are defending themselves and the lives of their own people. And they're doing what they need to do in a very restrained way to just get to stop the people who are trying to kill them. If someone breaks in your door and tries to kill you, you have a right to stop them by any means, including killing them if necessary.
According to Judaism, you're even required. I mean, that's
you are required.
It's not just your right; you're required.
I agree, and I agree with that. And I think that Christians believe that too. You could look at St. Thomas Aquinas' just war theory. This is a basic idea of self-defense. It's not aggression. You're not committing violence and aggression if you stop somebody from robbing you and killing you who's entering your house. They're the ones who are violent.
I don't think you know your history, though. Deterrence theory comes from Israel. Military deterrence theory was created in Israel.
Well, military deterrence.
If you take a deterrence theory at West Point, they're teaching you about Israel. They're not like we're the one who created
that. Here we go again with anti-Semitism.
That's not anti-Semitism. Take credit for it, Charles. You're a Jew, and we created deterrence theory, and you should take credit for it. You should be proud of it.
We created deterrence theory. Deterrence theory is every nation does deterrence.
I mean, historically, the idea was saying that it was largely developed by Israel.
Swiss had deterrence because every able-bodied man in Switzerland from 16 up carried a gun and knew how to use it. That's why the Nazis didn't invade Switzerland. They knew it would be too costly. That is deterrence. Every nation does this. It is a basic function of a sovereign nation to deter invasion and to deter violence by means of preparation and be prepared. Franklin Roosevelt engaged in deterrence when he prepared the United States to enter World War II because you could see that, Germany and Japan were ramping things up. Deterrence is normal. Deterrence is what animals understand. You try to invade a bird's nest and you'll see what deterrence looks like, and try to take an egg from a bird. This isn't violence. This is preventing violence by any means you can at your disposal. I mean, look, I don't want to go around another merry-go-round with you on this. This is a basic. The fact that you would single out Israel somehow as a nation which is under attack for
Facebook, I was saying this is what I do for Israel. Say like almost every Israeli I've spoken with, or every Republican I've dealt with in Michigan had to do with military in terms of Israeli coming here,
Israel
tech transfer agreements, and you're saying like, no, and that's what we do. That's what we're good at. We train police stations. We train people how to deal with riots. We have technology.
Well, the Israelis, in the course of time of their defending themselves, have become very good at security. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, it's not. I mean, that they're teaching people how to defend themselves, how to defend themselves against terrorists.
People talk to me all the time about Israel and Judaism. Usually, what they want to know about is violence. I mean, I studied in Mir Yeshiva at the Talmud. I love studying Torah.
You think it's violent?
I didn't have any interest, but most of the time I deal with the Jewish community
because the Israelis
want to talk about violence.
Because Israel has become, as I said, I'm going to say it again, because of their self-defense against a genocidal enemy, the Israelis have become very good at security and about defending yourselves. So sure, they know how to defend, for example, against an Islamic bomber. They came to this country, they were hired Israeli security people to help train policemen to understand what this looks like, because Israel deals with this on a regular basis and they've learned how to handle it. So yeah, they're very good at that field. That's not because they're advocating violence. They're advocating self-defense. They're not saying go out and be a terrorist. They're teaching you how to stop terrorism. This is not. I mean, is there something you're missing here?
I'm saying because I mean, there's something you're missing because I'm talking about military science, not morality, and you keep on talking about morality. I'm saying from the Israeli point of view,
military science.
From the Israeli point of view, there may not be such a thing as good or bad. Saying there's an us and them. It's a kill or kill be world, and Israel is winning because we're the killers, not the killed. And you're talking about morality and saying, I spent time in Israel. I spent time doing this stuff. People don't talk about morality. You're talking about morality.
Yes, they are. Israel is winning to the degree they are because
you're trying to convince people
the lives and the property of their own citizens, like any sovereign nation does. I mean, if the United States, if we dealt with the kind of threats that Israel deals with, we would become very good at this too, because that's what, you have to do. It's a necessity.
You need
otherwise they won't exist. Otherwise they'll be wiped out. It's a necessity. And that's why they're good at it. It's not because they're violent. They have learned how to exercise that element of sovereignty, the ability to defend your nation from a genocidal threat that poses itself every day in Israel. And it's not your average Palestinian Arab either. It is terrorists who are who work their way into that. And it's a tragedy for them, actually. But Israel has every right to do it, just like you have every right to lock the door to your house and defend your property. I'll bet you your car out in the parking lot is locked because you know that somebody might rob it. You have a right to defend your property. You have a right to defend your life. That is natural. That exists in the animal kingdom. The Israelis are good at it because they have to deal with more threats than any other nation, probably, other than a few. I mean, most nations in the world. And so they've become very good at it. And I'm glad they have, because if they hadn't, they wouldn't be there. Anyway, Dooovid, let's wrap it up. Do you want to mention your website or any other information?
No, nothing much. And I mean, honestly, I mentioned this because I'm not like most of my respect in the Jewish community, God forbid, comes from violence. And saying like, I went to Mir Yeshiva, I studied Talmud, I've been involved in fundraising, but most of the Jews that respect me because of violence. And it's unfortunate that's not what I signed up for. But I mean, it's why I mention it. And saying like the Hasbara in terms of moralizing good or bad. It probably serves an important function in saying, Charles, that's your position. You're involved in politics and a commentator. But internally, we don't talk about good and bad. We talk, in fact, good and bad usually is negative in terms of military strategy. I mean, it may be the civilian
Not when
rule.
it deals with self-defense, and that's what Israel stands for.
I mean, saying it doesn't matter whether you have a right to do it or not. I mean, that's like Krav Maga. It matters if you win, whether you're right or wrong. It matters that you won.
It depends on why you need to win. And in the case of Israel, it's to save the lives and the property of its own people.
It doesn't matter why.
They have no designs on their neighbors. They're not trying to conquer the Middle East. They're not trying
but
to.
You're talking about motives and things like that, which is a different.
There is a difference. You should study St. Thomas Aquinas. He wrote a book on this very topic. The name escapes me, Ecclesia something. It's a great work that laid the foundation for the concept of just war. That's what, I mean, the Western democracies have embraced, at least to the degree they have.
You tell that to Israelis? When you talk to Israelis, you tell them they should study Thomas Aquinas?
Sure, because it's the concept of the just war. And that's what Israel does. They are not engaging in an aggressive war. They are defending the lives of their own people and their own property. And they have a right and a moral obligation to do that, just like we all do, just like you do right now by locking the door to your house. That is what we do. That is normal. That is part of nature. Anyways, Dooovid, listen, I want to thank you for joining me.
You mentioned Purim. The reason why, this was all an advertisement for Purim, and even Netanyahu got up and talked about Iran, and he said, his Purim message was basically, get in line, Iran, or we're going to destroy you again. But tonight
That's
is Purim.
They're saying that Iran is apparently enriching more uranium, and they've got centrifuges, and they have publicly said that they plan to destroy the state of Israel. Israel is responding by saying they're going to stand up for their own people and their own sovereignty.
Does that have a connection to Purim? I was saying Netanyahu said that had something to do with Purim. In your mind, what does that have to do? You're saying does that have something to do with Purim or not?
Was the first example where you had a prime minister who sought to annihilate the Jewish people, and the Jewish people stood up for themselves and won.
It was likely the Iranian people. The fact in the Purim story 2,500 years ago was the Iranian people. Does that have any influence on our relationship with Iran today? Or say no, it was predicted.
If Iran is going to behave like Haman and decide to wipe out the Jews, then the Jews are going to stand up and they're going to defend themselves. And then in the case of Purim, they defeated those enemies, and hopefully they will again if that be the case. It doesn't mean the Iranian people. It means the people who have their finger on the nuclear trigger and who tend to destroy Israel and have stated that. And when they say it, I believe them, unlike you. Anyway, Dooovid, listen, thanks a lot. I got to go.
Okay, great.